Okay, let's jump right into this executive briefing. If you've been tracking the massive capital flowing into AI right now, it's easy to think the whole story begins and ends with the GPUs. But today, we're going to look at why this AI build-out is fundamentally a bandwidth story. As these training clusters get exponentially larger, the traditional copper wiring holding everything together, well, it's hitting a hard physical wall. And that brings us to photonics, literally moving data with light. It is the invisible backbone of AI. And honestly, understanding it is absolutely critical for any tech executive or infrastructure investor right now.
So I want to hit you right away with the burning platform here. 30%. That's the chunk of a data center's total power budget that gets eaten up just by networking when you're using copper-heavy architectures at AI scale. Think about that. When you're a hyperscaler running a $10 billion cluster, that 30%, that's $1 billion operational liability. Switching to optical completely halves that figure. So we're not talking about a nice-to-have upgrade. It's a multi-billion-dollar operational imperative.
We're going to move rapidly through this explainer today. We'll cover the AI bandwidth bottleneck, overcoming copper's physical limits, the 3 generations of optics, the urgent economics of AI, and finally, supply chain leaders and their moats. Let's get to it. Starting with Section 1, the AI bandwidth bottleneck and why copper is failing at scale. Here's the operational crisis we're facing. Training a frontier AI model today means moving petabytes of data across hundreds of thousands of GPUs, all with microsecond latency. The collective bandwidth of just one AI supercluster rivals the entire data traffic of a mid-sized country. Now, copper cables have been our default for decades, right? They're cheap, they're reliable, but at modern AI data rates, we're talking 800 gigabits, 1.6 terabits per second, copper just can't bridge data center distances without massive signal degradation. The hard data is staggering. Optics give you a 10x power efficiency advantage and a range of over 2 kilometers. Copper at those same speeds, it taps out at about 3 meters before the signal completely falls apart. You can wire a single rack with copper, sure, but no way can you wire a whole data center floor. Moving to Section 2, overcoming copper physical limits, or the physics of the fix. To really grasp the economics here, you've got to understand the physics. Think of it like this. Electrons moving through copper create friction. That friction causes resistive heat loss. So it's literally stealing precious watts away from your compute power just to generate heat. Heat that then demands even more power just to run the cooling infrastructure. It's a vicious cycle. Photons, on the other hand, are particles of light. They just glide through optical fiber with zero resistance, generating absolutely zero resistive heat. They permanently solve both the heat and the distance bottlenecks, giving all those stolen watts right back to your GPUs where they belong. Next up, Section 3, 3 generations of optics, and the architectural roadmap. So, photonics itself isn't new, but the sheer scale of AI is forcing a total rethink of exactly where the optics live inside the hardware. Let's trace this evolution. Step 1 is our current baseline, pluggable transceivers. These are just bolted onto the edge of a switch, converting electrical signals to light. Step 2 is silicon photonics. This is a huge shift where those optical components are integrated directly onto silicon chips, using standard manufacturing. And then Step 3 is the real frontier, co-packaged optics, or CPO. This is where the optical engine is placed right next to the compute die itself. We're talking about shrinking the electrical path from several inches down to literally mere millimeters. The efficiency gains here are just wild. Looking at the jump from baseline pluggables, silicon photonics nets us a 3 to 4 times improvement. But co-packaged optics, that delivers a massive 5 to 8 times improvement in bandwidth efficiency per watt. And this right here is exactly why every major switch vendor and hyperscaler is sprinting towards CPO for their next generation of AI fabric. Let's move into Section 4, the urgent economics of AI and the billion-dollar ROI. Ultimately, physics dictates the economics, and the demand signal in the market right now is absolutely flashing red. We are seeing lead times of 52 weeks or more for high-end optical components. Hyperscalers are scrambling to lock down multi-year supply agreements. It's the exact same panic buying behavior we saw with AI GPUs a little while ago. And why wouldn't they? If you're building a multi-billion-dollar AI cluster, you simply cannot afford to let it sit idle because you're bottlenecked by a shortage of optical transceivers. Finally, Section 5, supply chain leaders and moats, and where capital defends itself. Let's map out where the most durable moats actually are.
Because this photonics supply chain operates very differently than traditional logic chips. It's highly fragmented across 4 distinct layers: materials, components, modules, and systems. With traditional chips, winning is usually about owning a single dominant foundry choke point, like a TSMC. But photonics, it demands distributed, highly specialized materials and processes. Winning here is about owning those hard-to-replicate niches across these 4 layers. The barriers to entry are incredibly high, which creates some genuinely durable moats for the incumbents. Let's highlight some of the key players, starting with the pure plays. The standout is Coherent. They've got an incredibly comprehensive stack with unmatched vertical integration, from the raw wafers all the way to the finished transceivers, though, that does come with some execution risk. Then you have Lumentum. They essentially hold a monopoly on the pump lasers you absolutely need to amplify signals as these AI campuses expand across multiple buildings. And if you're looking for a higher risk, higher reward play on the transceiver upgrade cycle itself, you've got Applied Optoelectronics.
Moving up to the semiconductor and CPO layer, you really cannot underestimate Marvell. Their DSP chips are the engine inside basically every high-speed optical transceiver. It's practically a royalty on every node deployed. Then there's Broadcom. Because of their sheer dominance in switch ASICs, they actually have the power to dictate the technical standards for future co-packaged optics. And you'll definitely want to keep an eye on Credo. They're a signal integrity specialist that's quietly grabbing market share with some highly power-efficient architectures. Over on the systems and manufacturing side, Fabrinet is kind of the sleeper volume play here. As a contract manufacturer, they scale right along with the entire industry's volume, but they safely avoid the technology risk of betting on just one product cycle. You also have legacy heavyweights like Cisco and Intel sitting on some deeply undervalued photonics IP. And, of course, NVIDIA and Arista Networks, whose infrastructure platforms essentially scale directly with every single new optical standard that gets adopted. So, to really sum up our core thesis for this explainer, the photonics market is not just some passing product cycle, and it's definitely not a secondary side effect of the AI boom. It is a structural imperative. It is being driven by the unforgiving physics of electrons simply failing to keep up. We're looking at a multi-decade architectural transformation of the entire computing stack, layer by layer and interface by interface. I want to leave you with one final thought, looking a bit beyond the public markets. There are private frontier companies doing some wild stuff here. AR Labs is developing optical chiplets, and Celestial AI is going after an aggressive thesis to replace the electrical memory bus entirely with light. So as you plan out your capital allocation and your infrastructure roadmaps, ask yourself, are your investments actually prepared for the impending disruption of the electrical memory bus itself? Because the transition to light is inevitable, and honestly, it's happening a lot faster than the market has priced in. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.